Hello and welcome to my review of The High Window by Raymond Chandler. This is the third book in the Philip Marlowe series and was first published in 1943. It sees Marlowe hired by Elizabeth Brighton Murdoch, a wealthy widow who abuses her secretary, mollycoddles her son and despises her daughter-in-law. Marlowe, always a good judge of character, dislikes her immediately and, as usual, is happy to take the case on anyway. The case in question is that of a stolen coin, the Brasher Doubloon, a gold, unminted and extremely rare collectible. Murdoch does not actually have permission to sell the coin, and her daughter-in-law, who she assumes has stolen it, definitely doesn't. To get it back, Marlowe will have to complete a quest that involves familiar Chandler tropes like cheap gangsters, fops and women with secrets. The first woman with secrets is Linda Conquest, Leslie Murdoch's estranged wife. Leslie, though, is following Marlowe, as is another man, and trying to find out why his mother has hired a private eye. Following a lead, Marlowe tracks down one of Linda's friends, now married to a gangster called Morny. Marlowe is again followed by the same man and challenges him, learning that he's George Anson Phillips, also a private eye, who feels he's taken on a case that might be beyond his capabilities, and he asks Marlowe to meet him later to help in the investigation. Marlowe learns from a rare coin dealer that somebody has tried to sell him the Brasher Doubloon, but keeping his appointment with Phillips, he discovers the man dead. The police arrest the local thug for the crime. The Murdochs give Marlowe a obviously false story about what's happened with the coin, that Leslie gave it to Morny to settle his debts. And while the thug has admitted to killing Phillips, Marlowe thinks that he's likely innocent and covering for somebody. Eventually, the Murdoch secretary, Marlowe, turns up at Marlowe's house, claiming to have shot one of the gangsters. Marlowe doesn't believe this, but he visits the house anyway and does actually find the man dead. He also learns, though, that Marlowe couldn't possibly have done it and that Morny and his wife are actually at the premises trying to make the death look like a suicide. When they're gone, Marlowe fiddles with the evidence they planted in order to damage their case. He then puts two and two together, travels around the various interested parties, and what passes for justice in Marlowe's world is done. In terms of the story, while the stakes feel a little lower than in the second book, Farewell My Lovely, I did feel that the story moved along better here. Perhaps this was because it was a little simpler, which in turn made it less convoluted. But the pacing was good, and the handful of twists and turns, the spanners in the work that were thrown in Marlowe's way, were all given extra urgency when he dashed from place to place, from mystery to mystery. The introduction of the detective Breeze works well. His appearance is bringing a degree of tension, and he's very much a stoic 1940s policeman, dogged and almost honest. Chandler handles their dialogue-heavy back and forth really quite well. The B-plot that surrounds Merle, the Murdoch secretary, really adds pathos as well, a character to care for. She may even be a good fit for Marlowe in that she seems to be an honest woman navigating other people's dishonesty. When they part, Marlowe observes, "I had a funny feeling as though I had written a poem and it was very good and I've lost it and would never remember it again," which is perfectly poetic for the usually stoic Marlowe. In modern times, no doubt, she would be the one to solve the case and probably beat up the bad guys in the process, but in Chandler's day, people were more prepared to show a broken woman and the reasons why. Gives the story another level beyond the purely financial and allows Marlowe to be something of a romantic hero as opposed to just a cynic. You can feel the emotion without being beaten over the head with it. Marlowe is very much the romantic hero operating on the outsides of civilization. His speech to Breeze summarizes this effectively. "Until you guys own your own souls, you don't own mine. Until you guys can be trusted every time and always to seek the truth out and find it and let the chips fall where they may. Until that time comes, I have a right to listen to my conscience." Marlowe's movements, his mood, are often reflected as well in the nature of the surroundings. He's quite often travelling, as mentioned. It's a story of degrees, of places, but the places that he does go are often at the end of roads or at the end of civilization, literally and metaphorically, in the example of Vanya, who lives in the last house at the end of a cul-de-sac. Marlowe acknowledges his position as the last moral figure in Los Angeles, and despite degrees of misanthropy, of alienation, of melancholy in his introspective prose, they lend a degree of certainty to his actions. We know that Marlowe cannot do anything other than rescue Mel. He can only be Galahad, even if he is, in Breeze's words, shop one. "Philip Marlowe," he said, the shop-soiled Galahad. Marlowe then can only rescue Merle and never find love with her. It makes him an engrossing character, which is helped by his cynicism, his verbal sparring with just about everybody who crosses his path, and Chandler's super smooth prose. Marlowe has to describe everybody that he meets, and usually with a dry or sardonic eye. The whole face was a trained face, a face that would know how to keep a secret, a face that held the effortless composure of a corpse in the morgue, which of course goes both ways, self-criticism being another trope of the romantic hero. We looked at each other with the clear, innocent eyes of a couple of used car salesmen. "Talk like that to me, Morn," he said, "and you are liable to be wearing lead buttons on your vest." "Just think," I said, "poor old Marlowe with lead buttons on his vest." I think that Chandler and Marlowe are back to the best in The High Window. I don't want to call Farewell My Lovely a misstep, but I don't think that it was quite as good as the first one, whereas this one is really up there. However, the most notable line in the entire book isn't actually a result of Chandler's brilliance or Marlowe's dry wit. It's a question of time. Dr. Karl Moss was a big burly Jew with a Hitler moustache. Probably a sentence that has never been said or written since this book came out in 1943. In conclusion, The High Window is a solid mystery, perhaps one with low stakes, but it is engrossing nonetheless. As usual, Marlowe is embroiled in a case by a wealthy and largely unlikable benefactor, and it takes him into the seedier side of Los Angeles, a place of washed-up actors turned gangsters, of the powerful abusing the powerless, and a city of crime crying out for a romantic night. What it gets is Philip Marlowe wisecracking, bear-poking, and very much hard-boiled. The depiction of Merle takes a while to come to the fore, but when it does, it adds heart and humanity to a story already moving along with a great deal of energy. It's not a long story, barely 190 pages in this volume, but every one of them has something that makes you want to read the next one. When Chandler and Marlowe are on this form, it's very easy to recommend them. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Are you Sexton Lovecraft?
Sexton Lovecraft?
Come, Sexton.
What?
Professor Lovecraft.
Please, call me Professor Lovecraft.
You have been found guilty of the most hideous crimes. The sentence is death. Have you any last words?
Small crowd. Damn, they got it fast.
Coming through!
Professor Lovecraft, help me!
Oh my god! They turned Professor Cohen into water!
I don't think that's water. Do not pull the lever. Fascinating.
Nice work, Professor.